Story 1: The Lightning Caller. My name is Andrea. I'm 33 now, but this happened when I was 19 and working a summer job as a camp counselor in northern Michigan. It was a traditional summer camp on a large lake with cabins, water activities, hiking trails, and all the usual outdoor experiences for kids aged 8 to 14. The camp had been operating since the 1960s on the site of what had once been a logging settlement. Most of the original buildings were gone, replaced by more modern structures, with the exception of the main lodge, a massive timber building that served as the dining hall, administrative office, and the center of indoor activities during bad weather. I was assigned to supervise the Juniper Cabin, housing 8 girls between 10 and 12 years old. By late July, we were in the 5th week of the 8-week summer session, and everything had been going smoothly. The weather had been nearly perfect. Warm, sunny days with cool nights, ideal for camping. That changed during the last week of July when a massive weather system moved into the region. The forecast called for several days of thunderstorms, some potentially severe. The camp director, Beth, gathered all the counselors for a meeting to review storm procedures, which activities would be canceled, where to shelter the children during lightning, and how to keep them entertained indoors. The first day of storms wasn't too bad. Some moderate rain in the morning that cleared by afternoon, allowing us to resume most outdoor activities. But the second day was different. The sky had an ominous greenish-gray tint from early morning, and the air felt unusually still and heavy. By mid-afternoon, dark clouds had built up over the lake, and we could see distant lightning on the horizon. Beth called for all campers to return to the main lodge as the storm approached. Inside, the atmosphere was a mix of excitement and anxiety. Many of the kids loved thunderstorms, while others were clearly frightened. We organized board games and arts and crafts to keep everyone occupied as thunder began to rumble closer. That's when I noticed one of my campers, a quiet girl named Lily, staring out the window with an intensity that seemed odd. While the other children played games or chatted, she stood motionless, watching the approaching storm with what looked like anticipation rather than fear. I walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Everything okay, Lily?" She didn't look at me, keeping her eyes fixed on the darkening sky. "It's coming," she said softly. "He's coming with the lightning." I assumed she was talking about thunder. Kids often personify natural phenomena, so I tried to reassure her. "The thunder might be loud, but we're safe in here. Nothing to worry about." She shook her head slightly. "Not the thunder. Him. The man in the lightning. He visits when the storms get bad enough." Something about her tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. She wasn't speaking with the dramatic flair of a child telling a ghost story. Her voice was matter of fact, as if stating something obvious and known. "What man in the lightning?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Lily finally turned to look at me. Her expression was unnervingly serious for a 10-year-old. "The one who lived here before. Before the camp, before the loggers. He walks between the lightning strikes. You can see him if you watch carefully." Before I could respond, a tremendous crash of thunder shook the building, causing several children to scream or jump. The storm had arrived in full force, with driving rain now pelting the windows, and lightning flashing almost continuously. Beth announced it was time for a movie, and the counselors began herding kids toward the lodge's small theater room. As I guided my group, I noticed Lily had returned to the window. Lightning illuminated her face in strobing flashes, and she was nodding slightly, as if in recognition or greeting to someone outside. "Lily, we need to join the others," I said, taking her hand gently but firmly. She came willingly, but whispered, "He saw me. He remembers me from last summer." During the movie, Lily sat quietly with the other girls from our cabin, seemingly engrossed in the film. The storm continued to rage outside, occasionally causing the lights to flicker. Each time this happened, I noticed Lily would look toward the windows, though they were covered with blinds. By evening, the storm had somewhat abated, though rain still fell steadily. We had dinner in the main lodge, and then it was time to return to our cabins. The paths were muddy and slick, so we moved carefully, all the children wearing raincoats and carrying flashlights. Our cabin, Juniper, was one of the furthest from the main lodge, situated near the edge of the woods. As we approached, a fresh wave of the storm rolled in, bringing renewed lightning and thunder. Just as we reached the cabin steps, a particularly bright flash illuminated the entire area, followed immediately by a deafening thunderclap that suggested a very close strike. In that flash of lightning, I thought I saw a figure standing among the trees at the forest edge, tall and unnaturally thin, dressed in what looked like old-fashioned clothing. But when I blinked and looked again, there was nothing there. I rushed the girls inside, attributing what I'd seen to a trick of light and shadow. Once in the cabin, I had them change into dry clothes and prepare for bed, trying to maintain a normal routine despite the continuing storm. Most of the children were tired from the day's disruptions and settled down quickly. Around midnight, I was awakened by a small hand shaking my shoulder. It was Lily, standing beside my bed, fully dressed in her raincoat and boots. "He's calling me," she said, her voice eerily calm. "He wants to show me something in the woods." I sat up immediately, alarmed that she was dressed to go outside. "Lily, it's the middle of the night and there's a dangerous storm. No one is calling you. You need to go back to bed." "You saw him too," she replied, "by the trees." "I know you did." A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the cabin's temperature. "I saw a shadow, that's all." "Now please, take off your raincoat and go back to bed." She regarded me with a strange mixture of pity and frustration. "He's been here much longer than the camp. He says there's a place in the woods where the lightning always strikes again and again. That's where he waits." I got out of bed and guided her back to her bunk, helping her remove her raincoat and boots. "Whatever you think you heard, it was just a dream. The storm is playing tricks on you." She complied but whispered, "He knows all our names. He's learned them over the summers. He says your name the funny way, with the emphasis wrong. Andrea instead of Andrea." I felt a cold knot in my stomach. No one at camp pronounced my name that way, but my late grandfather had, with his strong Norwegian accent. It was a detail no child could possibly know. After Lily fell asleep, I sat on my bunk, listening to the storm and trying to rationalize what had happened. Children have vivid imaginations. Storms create strange lights and sounds. The stress of the day had affected us all, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching the cabin. Twice, I thought I saw a tall shadow pass by the window, though the blinds were drawn. Each time, lightning flashed simultaneously, and the shadow seemed to move with the light rather than being dispelled by it. I didn't sleep again that night. When morning came, the storm had finally passed, leaving behind clear skies and the fresh scent of rain-washed air. The camp slowly returned to normal activities, though many areas remained muddy or waterlogged. During breakfast, I spoke with some of the other counselors about the previous night. Two of them, whose cabins were also near the woods, reported children having unusual nightmares about the lightning man, or the tall man from the storm. One counselor, James, mentioned that he thought he'd seen someone walking between the cabins during the height of the storm, but assumed it was another staff member checking for damage. Later that day, while the children were at their scheduled activities, I spoke with Ruth, the camp's oldest employee who had worked there since the 1970s. Without mentioning Lily specifically, I asked if there were any local legends about the area, particularly relating to storms. Ruth hesitated before responding. "There's an old story, not something we share with the campers. Before this was a logging settlement, native people in this area believed this land was sacred to a spirit they called the Lightning Walker. According to legend, he was a shaman who learned to travel within the lightning itself, moving between this world and the spirit world during powerful storms." "What happened to him?" I asked. The story goes that when white settlers arrived, they dismissed these beliefs and built on the sacred ground despite warnings. The lightning walker was angered and cursed the area. During the logging days, there were multiple instances of workers being struck by lightning, always in the same clearing about half a mile into the woods. Eventually, they abandoned the settlement, claiming the area was bad luck. Ruth shook her head. It's just a local folk tale, of course. Though I will say, we've had an unusual number of lightning strikes on the property over the years. That's why we're so strict about storm procedures. I didn't share my experience with Ruth, not wanting to seem superstitious. But that afternoon, I noticed Lily walking along the edge of the woods during free time, looking intently into the trees. When I approached, she pointed to a barely visible path leading into the forest. "That's where his special place is," she said, "where the lightning always finds him." He showed me in my dreams. I reported Lily's unusual behavior to Beth, who agreed to have the camp nurse evaluate her. The nurse found nothing physically wrong, but suggested keeping a closer eye on Lily during the remainder of the session, attributing her behavior to an overactive imagination combined with possible anxiety about storms. For the next few days, the weather remained clear, and camp life returned to normal. Lily seemed her usual self, participating in activities and no longer mentioning the lightning man. I'd almost convinced myself that it had all been the product of storm-induced stress and suggestion. Then, on our second to last night at camp, another storm system moved in. This one developed quickly, giving us barely enough time to get all the children to the main lodge before the downpour began. As we hurried along the paths, I realized with a sinking feeling that Lily wasn't with our group. I immediately alerted Beth, and several counselors formed search parties. I led the team checking our cabin and the surrounding area. The storm was intensifying rapidly, with frequent lightning making the search both urgent and dangerous. We found her raincoat and boots missing from the cabin. Following a horrible intuition, I led my team toward the woods, specifically toward the faint path Lily had pointed out days earlier. The going was difficult in the storm, with mud sucking at our boots and tree branches whipping in the wind. Lightning provided brief, disorienting flashes of visibility between periods of near darkness. We called Lily's name repeatedly, our voices nearly lost in the thunder. About a quarter mile into the woods, we reached a small clearing. In the center stood a single dead tree, its trunk blackened and split, clearly the victim of previous lightning strikes. And next to it, illuminated by a flash of lightning, was Lily, standing still, face upturned to the storm, her small figure dwarfed by the massive dead tree. "Lily!" I shouted, rushing forward. She turned toward me, and in another flash of lightning, I saw she was smiling. "He's here," she said as I reached her. "He's watching us right now." I grabbed her hand, intent on pulling her back toward camp, when the air around us changed. The hair on my arm stood up, and I felt a strange pressure in my ears. Signs I would later learn often precede a lightning strike. Acting on pure instinct, I pulled Lily away from the tree and threw us both to the ground several yards away. A blinding flash and deafening crack followed instantly. The dead tree had been struck, sending burning splinters in all directions. As my vision cleared from the flash, I saw something that defies rational explanation. Standing where the tree had been was a figure, impossibly tall and thin, its form seeming to flicker and shift like the afterimage of lightning on one's retinas. It had the basic shape of a man, but was elongated and distorted, wearing what looked like tattered old clothing. For a moment it appeared to turn toward us, though I couldn't make out a face, just a suggestion of eyes that glowed with the same blue-white intensity as lightning. Then another flash came and it was gone. The clearing contained nothing but the smoldering remains of the shattered tree. I grabbed Lily and ran, meeting the other searchers at the edge of the woods. We returned to the lodge, where Lily was examined by the nurse and found to be physically unharmed, but in a strange, detached mental state. She kept repeating that he just wanted to be remembered and that the lightning always finds him. The camp director called Lily's parents, who arrived the next day to take her home early. Before she left, Lily hugged me tightly and whispered, "He knows your grandfather. They've met in the lightning." I never returned to that camp after that summer. Later research revealed that the area did indeed have an unusually high incidence of lightning strikes, particularly in that section of the woods. Historical records confirmed that during the logging era, 3 men had been killed by lightning in separate incidents, all in approximately the same location. Most disturbing of all, when I looked into local indigenous history, I found references to a shaman who had supposedly discovered how to travel within lightning itself, becoming a being that was neither fully human nor spirit. According to the legends, he had been betrayed and killed by settlers, but his spirit remained, walking between worlds during powerful storms, occasionally making contact with those who could sense his presence, particularly children. I still can't explain what happened in that clearing, or how Lily knew about my grandfather's distinctive pronunciation of my name. But to this day, I feel a strange mixture of dread and anticipation whenever a severe thunderstorm approaches, and I always keep my blinds closed tight, afraid of what I might see moving between the lightning flashes. Story 2. The radio transmission. My name is Ethan. I'm 29 now, but this happened about 7 years ago when I was working as a night shift security guard at a self-storage facility on the outskirts of Oklahoma City. The facility was large, about 5 acres of land with multiple buildings containing hundreds of storage units of various sizes, all surrounded by a high chain-link fence with electronic gates. My job was straightforward: make regular rounds through the property every 2 hours, monitor the security cameras, and be available if any customers needed after-hours access to their units, which wasn't common but happened occasionally. The night shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights were quiet and uneventful. The security office was a small building near the main entrance, equipped with monitors showing feeds from about 20 cameras placed strategically around the property. I also had a 2-way radio to communicate with customers at the gates if necessary, and a weather radio that automatically broadcasts severe weather alerts, an important feature in Oklahoma, where severe storms and tornadoes are common. This incident occurred in early May, during what locals call tornado season. I had been working at the facility for about 6 months and had settled into a comfortable routine. That night started normally enough. I arrived for my shift, received the usual update from the evening guard about nothing of note happening, and settled in for what I expected to be another quiet night. Around 11:30 p.m., the weather radio activated with a severe thunderstorm warning for our county. This wasn't unusual for the season, and the alert indicated the storm was still about an hour away from our location. I continued my regular duties, completing my first round of the property and returning to the office around midnight. As I monitored the camera feeds, I could see the storm approaching, distant lightning illuminating the horizon, the wind picking up and swaying the trees along the perimeter. By 1 a.m., the storm had arrived in full force. Heavy rain lashed against the office windows, and thunder shook the small building. The power flickered several times but held, thanks to the facility's backup generator. I was due for another round at 2 a.m., but with the storm at its peak intensity, I decided to wait until it abated somewhat. Company policy allowed postponing rounds during severe weather, as long as the camera monitoring continued uninterrupted, so I sat watching the monitors, which showed rain-blurred views of empty driveways and buildings occasionally illuminated by lightning flashes. At approximately 2:15 a.m., something unusual happened. The 2-way radio, which had been silent all night, suddenly emitted a burst of static. This wasn't completely unheard of. Sometimes severe weather or other electronic interference could cause brief static on the system, but what followed was different. Through the static came what sounded like a voice, faint and distorted, but unmistakably human. I picked up the radio and adjusted the volume, trying to make out what was being said. The voice faded in and out, but I could catch fragments. Storage unit 347. Need help. Door stuck. Water rising. This was alarming for several reasons. First, no one should have been on the property at that hour except me. The electronic gates were closed, and the camera monitoring hadn't shown any vehicle entries. Second, Unit 347 was in Building C, one of the older structures at the back of the property. Third, while some water pooling occurred during heavy rain, the facility was built on high ground specifically to avoid flooding issues. I keyed the radio. This is security. Please identify yourself and your location. No response, just more static. Then the voice again, clearer this time. Water coming in. Can't open door. Please help. Unit 347. I checked the entry log on the computer. No one had used their access code to enter the facility since 8:36 p.m., well before my shift started. I brought up the camera that covered Building C on the main monitor. The feed showed the building's exterior, rain pouring down, but no vehicles or people visible. I tried the radio again. I show no entries to the facility tonight. How did you get onto the property, and why are you in a unit during a storm? The response was immediate and chilling. Been here since the flood. Please. Door jammed. Water rising. Dark in here. Oklahoma had experienced significant flooding about 2 years earlier, but nothing that would have trapped someone in a storage unit for that length of time. This had to be either a prank or a crossed signal picking up a transmission from somewhere else. I'm going to need you to verify your identity and how you accessed the property, I said firmly. Otherwise, I'll have to treat this as a security breach. Static filled the radio then. Thomas Miller, Unit 347, May 8th, please. I froze. Today's date was May 7th. The voice was giving tomorrow's date, and something about the name Thomas Miller seemed vaguely familiar, though I couldn't immediately place it. Despite my growing unease, I had a responsibility to investigate. If someone was genuinely trapped on the property, they needed help. I grabbed my flashlight, raincoat, and a master key that would open any unit, then radioed the situation to my supervisor's emergency line, leaving a voicemail explaining where I was going and why. The storm was still raging as I made my way across the property in the company golf cart, rain pelting my face despite the cart's small canopy. Lightning provided strobing illumination of the facility grounds, creating disorienting patterns of light and shadow. The wind was strong enough to rock the lightweight cart, and thunder crashed continuously overhead. Building C was located at the far end of the property, about a quarter mile from the office. As I approached, lightning struck somewhere nearby, close enough that I could smell the sharp metallic scent of ozone in the air. The cart's headlights seemed to dim momentarily, and the small electric motor sputtered before resuming normal operation. I parked outside Building C and entered through the main door, which led to a long hallway with storage units on both sides. The building's interior lighting was minimal at night, just enough to navigate safely but creating deep shadows between the overhead fixtures. The sound of rain on the metal roof was nearly deafening inside the metal building. Unit 347 was located about halfway down the corridor on the right side. As I approached, I noticed something odd, unlike the other units, which had standard padlocks or combination locks on their rolling doors. Unit 347's door appeared to have an older rusted padlock that didn't match our facility's current hardware. I tried my radio again. I'm at Unit 347 now. Can you hear me? No response, not even static this time. The radio was completely silent. I examined the door more closely. The padlock was definitely not our current model, and it looked weathered and aged beyond what would be normal for even our oldest units. The door itself had what appeared to be water stains along the bottom edge, though the floor of the hallway was currently dry. Using my master key on the lock mechanism adjacent to the padlock, I unlocked the unit. The rolling door was indeed stuck, not from water pressure, as the radio message had suggested, but from apparent disuse. It took considerable effort to raise it a few feet. The beam of my flashlight revealed a unit that was largely empty, except for some old cardboard boxes in the back corner, discolored and warped, as if they had indeed been exposed to water at some point. There was a musty, damp smell, but no standing water, and most importantly, no person inside. As I stood there, confused and increasingly unsettled, my flashlight beam caught something on the inside wall of the unit. What looked like writing or markings scratched into the paint. I stepped inside to examine it more closely. The markings were dates, dozens of them, scratched into the wall with what must have been a key or other sharp object. They started with May 8th and continued for several days afterward. Below the dates was a name, Thomas Miller. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the rain soaking my clothes. I backed out of the unit quickly, lowered the door, and secured it. As I turned to leave, my flashlight flickered, and then went out completely, leaving me in near total darkness, interrupted only by occasional flashes of lightning, visible through small windows high in the building's walls. I used the light from my cell phone to navigate back to the main door, trying to maintain my composure despite my racing heart. Just as I reached for the door handle, a particularly intense flash of lightning illuminated the corridor behind me. In that brief, stark moment of brightness, I saw a figure standing in the hallway near Unit 347. A man, soaking wet, with a pale, bloated appearance. He seemed to be staring directly at me, one hand outstretched as if reaching for help. When darkness returned, an instant later, I fumbled with the door in panic, finally pushing it open and rushing outside into the storm. The golf cart's electric motor whined in protest as I pushed it to its maximum speed, racing back to the security office through the downpour. Once safely inside, I locked the door and tried to make sense of what had just happened. My hands shaking, I searched the facility's customer database for the name Thomas Miller. The search returned a single result. Thomas Miller had rented Unit 347 2 years ago, during the major flooding event that had affected parts of Oklahoma City. According to the notes in his file, Miller had stopped paying for the unit after 3 months, and the company had sent the standard series of notices before eventually clearing out the unit and releasing it for rental. The notes indicated that the contents had been minimal, just a few water-damaged boxes that had been discarded as worthless. There was nothing in the file about Miller himself, no indication of what might have happened to him. With a growing sense of dread, I searched his name online, adding Oklahoma City and 2017, the year of the flood. The third result was an article from the local newspaper about flood victims. Thomas Miller, 42, had been reported missing during the height of the flooding. His car had been found abandoned on a road that had been cut off by rising water, but Miller himself was never located. The article was dated May 9th, 2017, the day after the date the voice on the radio had mentioned. As this horrible realization sank in, the two-way radio crackled to life again. Through heavy static, the same voice spoke, "Thank you for opening the door." I watched the monitors with growing horror as every camera feed showing the exterior of the buildings captured the same impossible image: water rising rapidly around the structures, despite the fact that no flooding was occurring. On the feed showing Building C, a figure that appeared to be a man could be seen walking slowly away from the entrance, heading toward the perimeter fence. Then lightning struck the facility's main power transformer. The camera's lights and all electronics went dead for the few seconds before the backup generator kicked in. When power was restored, the camera feeds showed normal conditions. Heavy rain, but no flooding, and no figure walking across the grounds. The radio remained silent for the rest of my shift. When my relief arrived at 6 a.m., the storm had passed, leaving behind only puddles and scattered debris. I considered telling him what had happened but decided against it, fearing how it would sound. Instead, I noted in the log that there had been some radio interference during the storm, and that I had investigated a possible security concern at Building C but found nothing amiss. After my shift, I couldn't shake the experience and decided to do more research. What I discovered disturbed me deeply. The flooding event 2 years earlier had been catastrophic in certain areas. The road where Thomas Miller's car was found had been near our storage facility. One theory in the news reports was that Miller had abandoned his car and attempted to reach higher ground on foot, but had been swept away by the rapidly rising water. But another possibility now haunted me. What if Miller had made it to the storage facility, seeking shelter from the flood? What if he had somehow entered Building C and hidden in Unit 347, only to become trapped when the rolling door jammed? With power out across the area and communication systems down during the disaster, his calls for help might have gone unheard. I never worked another night shift at that facility, transferring to days and eventually finding a different job altogether. But every year, when May 8th approaches and storm season begins in Oklahoma, I think about Thomas Miller and the voice on the radio. I wonder if, in the moment between lightning and thunder, between this world and whatever lies beyond, his desperate call for help somehow bridged the gap between then and now, reaching through the storm to finally be heard 2 years too late.